Welcome, everybody, to the Green Team Legendarium podcast. With me today, I have faithful Kyptan
Ayo.
and my main mate, Sean.
What's going on?
I'm Yetti Beats, and we're going to be discussing Ship of Destiny by Robin Hobb, Book 3 in the Liveship Traders Trilogy. And I got to tell you, I survived. It looks like Kip survived. Sean's looking good. What a journey,
I'm
guys!
here.
What a journey. I mean, that's uh, what's there to say? Is this it? I don't know. But
With
Kip, let's.
with much with much perseverance, I survived.
You sped through it though, Kip.
Yeah, I'm impressed, honestly.
I just had to remember: don't get too attached. Don't get too attached. Don't get too attached.
Yeah, that was your mantra throughout the whole thing, pretty much.
They're gonna die, so don't get attached. They're gonna die, so don't get attached. And then some of them didn't die, and it was great.
I know that is funny when you kept saying that. I feel like on your mind was like a death or a thing. I'm thinking like, it's honestly much worse than that. But yeah, hit us with your spoiler free thoughts on Ship of Destiny, and if you want the trilogy as a whole. But since this is your first read through,
Oof. Okay. So from Hobb, I was of course expecting good character work, and I got that. I was also expecting some very sad things to happen. That also occurred. What I maybe wasn't expecting was for her to change my mind about how good character work can happen. And I think that especially Mad Ship gave me just A+ character work that I'm going to judge other books by from now on.
Very nice.
what about you, Sean? Feel similarly?
I mean, yeah. I was expecting the great character work, like Kip said, and definitely got that. Uh, I was definitely interested to see how she would handle doing multiple POVs compared to just doing fits for an entire trilogy. And I think she does that even better than just a single POV, because there were times where I'm reading Live Ship and there's an interaction between two characters that are both POV characters, and you can almost like guess how the one character is going to react, or you know what they're thinking in the moment because of how established they are as a character. That's how good Hobb is at establishing these characters. So that made for a satisfying read. But I was expecting it to be great overall, and it was great overall.
Yeah, if I can add just one little bit, I was not super happy with the pacing of the last 5 to 10% of this book.
Mm. Hmm.
I thought it was much weaker than the rest of the series, especially the parts of the series that had immediately preceded it.
You thought it was slow?
I thought it was too fast.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I thought it was far too fast, and it really sped things up beyond a pace point and beyond a consequence point where it almost felt like maybe I'll return to this in spoilers, but things started feeling unearned.
I think I felt similarly when I read it. Not the unearned part, but I did want a little more like post big events for me to just kind of sit with these characters for a bit longer
Yeah,
after the main conflicts.
either more or less. It
Hmm.
did feel like an epilogue, but it wasn't labeled as an epilogue because she was really big on her stylistic. You start with a prologue and you got to end with a certain type of epilogue. She felt locked in by that structure.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird coming out of that book, especially kind of not the last 10%, but that like 20% before, how like jam packed it was and on a ride. It's weird coming out of that last 10 wanting more, especially after all of what you just read. And I
Yeah.
get it. I did feel like that too. Although on my first read, I wasn't super dissatisfied because I hadn't read anything else yet in the realm of the Elderlings. So in my mind, I was like, okay, I guess maybe there's three more trilogies left that possibly will keep this story going, at least some of these characters. Now I've read a little bit more into it, and I'm not 100% sure that's true, even though, but I'm still hopeful. But that was my mindset. I wasn't as disappointed, but you definitely have a valid point. I mean, it kind of just like hits each character at a different point, and it's like, so we're at here right now, and this is.
It's like, okay,
it's
I
ending.
guess these things need to be in place before the next series can happen, I guess.
Right.
But it almost feels like something would have been better served even by like a short novella that's just like aftermath or something. Like, I don't know.
Is there one? I know there's a couple novellas in the world, but I don't think they're live ship related.
Well, with these chapters, they don't need to be.
Yeah. I think there's one like pre-Assassin's Apprentice, or like a couple pre-Assassin's Apprentice.
Robin Hobb Aftermath. It's like the least Robin Hobb title I've ever heard. It's like trashy sci-fi. But,
No, it's a Jim Butcher title.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I guess that kind of dovetails. Do you think this was a satisfying end for the trilogy? I'm leaning no or yes. It's hard to tell.
Yes, it was just slightly disappointing stylistically.
I think
I
it's
think
gotta
it
be
did.
yes.
I do too. I think in the end, She has just such a knack for taking it in a direction that I am not expecting, but did want, maybe not secretly knowing, but like in feeling fulfilled in the decisions she made. Like throughout each book, I was like, oh, didn't see it going, and this is the kind of arc she was taking, and I felt similarly in this fashion in this book, where I felt fulfilled after reading it with all the characters' arcs for the most part,
Yeah.
and
It's
things
going to
like
be
that.
hard for me to articulate this part without spoilers.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Right. I want to go back real quick, Kip, to you. I think we asked it last episode, but now that you've read all three, do you think this was a better starting point for Hobb fans than the first
Then the
trilogy?
first three? Uh, I mean, I haven't read the rest. How am I going to know that?
Well, for Farseer, would you tell a Hobb fan to start with Farseer or to get? Because after reading it again, I'm fully in the camp that this is the best part to start with for if learning Hobb and liking Hobb. But
I think
Now,
it. I think it depends what they want. It depends who you're recommending to. But in general, I think I'd still go with Farseer as the entry point.
touche. You too, Sean.
I don't like how there's Assassin's Quest spoilers in Liveship, even though you probably wouldn't even recognize them if you hadn't read Farseer, but still. That's enough for me to be like, no, can't do it.
Yeah.
It's a good point. All right, should we jump into spoilers territory and get this show on the
Yeah.
road?
That was a good non-spoiler segment for
Yeah.
us. I feel like that
I held back.
was better than usual.
I gave Mad Ship 5 stars and I gave Ship of Destiny 4.
Me too.
And it's only because of the last like few chapters.
Oh, that's a good point. So, everyone's favorite book. You're saying Mad Ship, Kip, and
Yep.
Sean. You also think Mad Ship?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I said Mad Ship in the last episode, but I think I'm changing my mind. I think Ship of
Ooh.
Destiny. After that second, there's just so much in this second half. It really is.
Ship of Destiny was building towards favorite for sure. It was building, it was building, it was building, and then off a cliff.
Last 10%. Just
Off a
literally
cliff into 4
jump the
stars.
shark for you.
For me, it was kind of the opposite. I actually thought that the first 100 pages, or first couple hundred pages, 2 to 300 range, were the worst 2 to 300 initial pages of the 3 books. I was
Okay.
really only into the Kenneth Winthrop stuff. Like the Bingtown stuff was just okay to me. Malta's whole situation.
Spoiler free, remember.
Oh yeah, that was mostly spoiler free. But yeah, so
There's some names
Still.
there. Names are never spoiler free in a Hobb sequel.
I know. But yeah, that was my point anyway.
All right. Well, nothing under 4 stars. It looks like
Correct.
it's good average for all of us. All right, let's jump into it. I think what we're going to start with It's probably the most dynamic part of the book. I don't know if dynamic's the right word for it. Most controversial. It's what everyone kind of talks about. Chapter 26, and this is kind of the sequence where Kenneth, I guess, maybe I'll put a spoiler or a warning for like a trigger warning. You know, I don't know how to put it without just saying it. So,
Content warning.
content warning. If this is kind of graphic stuff we're going to be talking about. So, Althea is captured by Kenneth, and she's drugged and she's raped. And I think that was kind of the turning point for, honestly, the character of Kenneth, which is weird to say, I think. But for me, that sequence, I think Huron fan on Discord said it was the third worst rape he's ever read. I haven't read Malzahn, but that was the worst for me. That was one of the most traumatizing things I've ever read in like as a fiction story.
Malazan has worse. Malazan has worse.
I'll take your
Yep.
word for it. But at least with me, I think in that scene that you kind of get both POVs. I know you definitely get Althea's, and I think you also get Kenneth's. It switches to, and it was.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really can't describe it. I had to put the book down after that chapter. I had to take a break, and it's weird in those situations. Like I'm blessed. At least no, I don't think anyone in my life has been had this kind of thing happen to them. I hope not. I've never known. But in these situations, whenever I see a movie or read things like that, I always think of like a family, this happening to a family member. And in this case, for me, I was like totally in pain for Althea. I wasn't seeing Althea as, which is credit to Robin Hobb, but it kind of just broke me. And I don't know. What was Sean? What was your thoughts with that scene? What it made you think about Kenneth? If you were ever on the fence on him before that?
Well, I have my notes up, and my first note in chapter 26 was just, all right, Kenneth needs to die now.
Yep.
So really, I mean, up until that point, I was like, I guess a little torn. I don't know. I don't remember the specifics of before that chapter because it's been a bit, but yeah, that chapter was the point of no return for me with Kenneth's character. Well, the point of no return for him within the series having anything good happen to him. Like I just wanted him to either die or get his comeuppance in some form. I still love his character because I think it was genius in so many ways, which we'll get into. Um, but yeah, made me very sad. I hated him because of that. Um, the mental gymnastics surrounding like his reasoning and his desire for that act was intense, but also, like I said, pretty genius on Hobbs' part to kind of just have that characterization going.
For sure. Kip, did it break you as well?
I think that this was the moment, or one of the moments at least, that the entire world kind of pivoted on. Because I had from Ship of Magic, when you first meet Kenneth, you know he is a horrible person, and you know he's manipulative, and you know that he only is trying to look out for himself. And he will break any rule or any taboo that prohibits him from doing that. And then over the course of that book, and then going into Mad Ship, you see him do a lot of good. And he frees up slaves. He effectively establishes a new nation, which is the only nation in that area for freed peoples. And then he ruins it. He ruins it all. And I think the like karmic system of this world, the destiny system of this world, recognizes that. And from that point on, he has confirmed by his own actions his role as the villain of the story. And it could have been almost anyone else up until that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I I don't know. I think I differ with you two, where I always thought, I don't know if it's based on the reread, but I always saw him as the villain. And I think Hobb did, I think the best thing she did in this book was kind of gloss over kind of how evil he is. Now, obviously, I'm going to say just stuff you know before the raid. Because, like, obviously, I could say, well, you know, he killed his whole old crew and drowned Paragon. But we didn't know that as a reader before that. So I'm not really going to use that. But, you know, but also he was terrible to Etta throughout the book. When she saved his life, he curses her. You know, he treats her like garbage for saving his life. I mean, there's little. I'm not trying to compare, you know, freeing slaves to that, but like that's throughout. Yeah,
that's like a semi-common storyline on medical dramas about amputees, so I kind of brush it off.
Well, I don't know the whole amputee history for medical dramas.
I'm just saying, it's a thing I see in Grey's Anatomy, and I was like, oh yeah, it's happening again.
But even, yeah, I get it. Or just, I think some of the things that he does to, I mean, obviously you could say murder. He kills people. It's obviously like that guy who was on Ingrat's old ship. But I think like those things we just gloss over. It's like, it's not a big deal. But it's like that dude, he was a villain. It's like, you know, he was still an evil dude.
He did bad things. He wasn't the villain yet.
And I think, to your point, I think definitely in the first book, he wasn't the villain yet because we had someone on another ship who was just horrendous. And I think Hobb was kind of using Kyle as a little cover to, you know, obviously when you compare Kyle to Kenneth in that book, you're like, oh yeah, come on. This guy is much cleaner as a ship captain and everything. But I really do. I think a lot of people reading the reactions that people were shocked. People were like, I cannot believe Kenneth did this, or I cannot, or you know, either or. They're like exactly what Sean's kind of instinct was. Like, he needs to die now. And I definitely was like that in my first read through too. I felt like an idiot afterwards. I'm like, how could have I even like had hope for this guy? Like, I felt like an idiot. But this read through, I was definitely looking at different things and what he would do to Wintrow psychologically. But I also think this comes into play the intent versus action conversation with him.
And like, you can't pretend that this is a universe, this is a world that doesn't that like works by blind random chance. No, this is a universe with a design. This is a universe with a purpose, and one that rewards and punishes people based on some very complicated formulas. And Kenneth was being pulled into this position of power as this pirate king, as this leader of men and of freed people. And as long as he kept to that, as long as he lived up to those ideals and managed not to screw it up, like his charm kept warning him, then he would be on a nice glide path towards like happy retirement.
Would he have had that ambition though without his past, without all the pain that was inflicted upon him? Probably not.
See, that's the thing though, because his past pain and trauma really gives him a bit of a pass for some of the things he did early on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to say, is he sympathetic because of his past? Do you find him sympathetic because of his past?
Oh, he's absolutely sympathetic. That's irrespective of whether he's a villain, whether he's bad, whether he's evil. Sure. He's very sympathetic. But I don't think as many people who are like, I feel betrayed by Kenneth, view sympathy for a character as existing separate from them being a good or bad person.
See, I feel like his, like what Sean said, his past trauma, I feel like that plays more into his destiny than anything. I think it was inevitable that he was going to do what he did because of that past trauma and what Ingrat did to him.
I think he had a choice. I think he had a choice there. His charm certainly thought he did. Vivacia thought he did. Or whoever Vivacia was at that point thought he did.
I don't know if his charm did. His charm, the whole story was telling him he was going to fall on his face, and it was only a matter of time because I feel the way I looked at what happened was, and this is kind of a constant in this book, was the passing on of pain. We find that he does it to Paragon, and essentially that's what he does to Althea. He passes that pain that Igrok came to him. He passed it on to Althea.
But do you think Althea's going to pass it on to a child?
I think that's one of the...
Because if you think that if it's a never-ending cycle that can't be broken, then she has to. She has to rape a child at some point. Do you think that's going to happen?
Didn't she already pass it on to Paragon?
Do you think Paragon's going to rape a child?
No.
Well, she...
Like, she... Well, I mean, I guess Kenneth gave Paragon his pain, and he ended up doing that anyway, so I guess my point doesn't stand there.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, because Kenneth gave that same pain technically to Paragon. But whether it's... I think the point was that she's still going to... I mean, that's the biggest thing to take away from this rape, that it affected not just that moment. Other people were affected. Althea's future was affected with her relationship with Brashen and what it does to her. And that was kind of... Like, you could tell afterwards, until that rainstorm scene with Paragon, that she was not the same. Everyone could feel it. Obviously, how can you be? Obviously. But it altered her relationship with everything. I don't know if she's going to... I'll bring up a quote real quick because I have it up here, and I think this explains... it helps with what we're talking about. This is what... what's Althea's mom's name?
Ronica?
Yeah. And she... Remember that scene where she talks to Cirilla and she says, like, that's the challenge, companion, to take what has happened to you and learn from it. And nothing is quite so destructive as self-pity. No event in life is so terrible that one cannot rise above it. Kenneth could not rise above it for what happened to him. And so I think Althea could. And, she has a strong lineage. Not that that has anything to play into it, but I think that quote directly... Because the same thing happened to Cirilla, and you saw what it did to her. She didn't rape anyone, but she definitely used what happened to her to be abusive to people in Bingtown.
Kenneth didn't have any true confidants. None. He had no one he could talk to anything about. He had to be just a man on his own. And
he didn't allow himself any.
That's deeply toxic.
He killed them all.
Yeah,
he sunk them to the bottom of the ocean.
Oh yeah, he was like, wait, I'm gonna have to kill Sorkor. He knows too much now. Like,
yeah,
I'm gonna have to kill Edda. She knows too much now. I'm gonna have to kill Wintro. He knows too much now. Yeah, anyone who got too close to Kenneth was a threat.
Yeah. So mirror that to Althea, who she tells Brashen. That was a huge step for her to tell Brashen, this is what happened. This is the truth. She did not hide from that pain. She eventually let it out. That's what I think. That's
eventually.
Yeah. It definitely took her some time, but it was an interesting. I think we'll dive into this about the other characters, but with Brashen, when she does tell him, his first instinct was to say, "I'll kill him." Like, how could he do this? But then like immediately says, "I'm so sorry, I didn't like see it," or it's. But his first snap instinct was kind of selfish, that he was wrong by kind of doing it, but then it went into sympathy for Althea, which I thought was a nice touch, which is, it's all too real.
Look, but both Brashen and Grag have problems, but I'm still going to take Grag.
How dare you.
My God.
We'll get into that later. We'll definitely. Actually, I'm reading this book. I will say real quick, I kind of liked Greg at that. I forgot that he had more to play in it. And I was like, he's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a good guy.
It worked out.
Garg.
I mean, if it means that I have to end up with Ophelia, maybe not, but...
So another thing I wanted to talk about in regards to this horrendous rape, something that stuck out to me was what it did to everyone else around Althea. I think the worst part about this, and what Hobb kind of pinpointed, was the reactions from everyone else about the rape. Whether it was Vivacia not believing Althea. One of the worst for me was Wintro, and I promise I will have more to say about that. Even Edda, who did realize it, but still was no comfort. Jack even was kind of like, well, I think
Jack was the worst for me.
Okay. Well, this was the worst part about, maybe not. I thought this was the worst part of the rape for me. That hurt me the most. Just reading everyone else.
Mm.
And can you imagine how lonely Althea? We read it in that moment, and how low.
It was frustrating.
It was brutal. Yeah. It was
yeah.
terrible.
And
It was
Althea
like,
already has
someone
this
please.
mentality that like no one's going to believe her about her sex life because she's had that ever since she got raped that first time.
Yeah.
Yes, all goes back to that, and what her sister kind of shamed her into it, and even Wintrow was judgmental. I wrote this in the notes about her and Brashen being together when he first sees them together.
Wintrow is judgmental about everything.
Oh, we're gonna talk about it. Oh, I can't wait. So, but I thought that was like in other books. I don't think that aspect is explored in rapes. Not that rapes should be explored, but when they do have rape sequences, this part was usually always left out. It's always a revenge, getting revenge or whatever, and it was just it was heartbreaking to see every other person's kind of shrug it off or kind of make excuses, saying, "Oh, just the typical, are you sure you didn't dream it?" Which is just awful.
Yeah. I just found the quote by the charm at his wrist right after the rape, and it says, "You've crossed the line. What made you do it, Kenneth? Was that the only way to banish the memories finally, by giving them to someone else?"
I like needed the charm for the chapter 26 on, because he was like really just, well, the charm, it was really explaining to me a lot of Kenneth's mindset, and I don't know if I would have picked up it all without that explanation. So I was thankful for the charm toward the end of this book.
You think the charm explains Kenneth's mindset?
A bit, yeah.
Okay. He's a little bit like a conscience that Kenneth doesn't
Yeah.
listen to.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say like a moral compass that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Kenneth just ignores or just puts it in the back of his head to worry about another day. Low key, great character though.
A resentful conscience.
Right. Well, that was one. I guess that was one question someone had that I think it was Cody in the Discord was wondering: is the charm real or just a figment of Kenneth's imagination? And
The charm's real because Edda hears it.
yes, exactly. I read up on that and I was like, because all the nice things that Edda heard coming from Kenneth was all the charm in his voice.
Yep.
So again, Kenneth treats her like crap. So yeah, not sure what else to say about this other than I think this was the linchpin in this series. It's just like you said, the tipping point, so to speak, for Kenneth.
yeah.
And so it could be argued with a huge cast of characters, he's the main character of the series, or this trilogy. And I guess we'll answer one of Huron's questions now. He said, "Why is Kenneth the best and worst character?"
Kenneth's the one with the most personal power in the series. He's the one person who commands the largest fleet of ships and has made the largest impact on like the socio-political organization of that area of the world.
Yeah, makes him fun to follow for sure.
Yeah.
His psychology notwithstanding.
His personal decisions changed so much just based on the amount of military power that he had to bear. And so you can argue him as primary from that standpoint. Like the satrap clearly didn't command his own military.
Oh, jeez. He didn't command anything.
The big town traders, they can barely agree on anything. The Rainwild traders, they don't even have any ships.
So I want to get to Era's question then, because I think there's a lot of juice in it. His question had to do about, do you judge someone on their intent or their actions? And how does it pertain to characters in this story? And I think the biggest one he's talking about is obviously Kenneth, because, like you guys pointed out, his actions, a lot of it was pretty groundbreaking. And I mean, like you said, the slaves, Divvy Town's a functioning town. I mean, a healthy, functioning town. You could argue he turned Wintrow into a leader. There's just a lot of things.
Yeah.
But his intent, we all know as a reader, is hard, because we know that as a reader.
I don't think his intent is horrible. I think his intent is self-protection.
Or selfish, I'd say.
It's selfish. It's selfish as all get out. But I don't think he doesn't have an evil intent. He just has a very personal intent. And it's traumatized, it's hurt, it's broken, it's responding to pain from decades ago. But his goal isn't like, I want to destroy everything. His goal isn't, I want to like enslave this group of people. His goal isn't, I want to like torture and punish people for fun.
True. Yeah, self
Just be the Pirate King.
protection is a good point. Because everything could come down arguably to self protection. He just wants to protect his secret, and he'll do anything at selfish or whatever at cost to protect. And I guess his mission was to become bigger than Ygritte. More power.
Yep.
He couldn't become what he said he was. Ygritte said he was the Pirate King, but Kenneth always said not really, and he wanted to kind of surpass. I mean, it all comes back to that trauma that happened to him. That's But I guess you're right. I guess
better than the person who hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because if you're more powerful than that person, and that was the most powerful person that you could imagine, then you won't be hurt again because you're above that point. You're above anyone that could possibly even want to hurt you. And I do think that's just genius on Hobb's part.
He was better than Ygritte. We can give him that at least.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a great point. More powerful, and I think more powerful in the sense that obviously more powerful as him as a pirate king and everything like that, but also as power. I mean, rape is about power. People do that to show power over someone. It's not a sexual desire. It's making them powerless. And I think Cirilla, that's the point about Cirilla, how she never wanted to be powerless again. That's why she does everything in Bigtown. It's the same with Kenneth. He never wants to be powerless again in that situation. And so he takes out anyone that ever knew that he was powerless and reinvents himself. And he wants to be better than Ygritte, but like the charm says, he just eventually, whether it's destiny or because past trauma will lead this down this path, he became Ygritte.
Yep, not better, not worse, just the same.
Yeah. I still would like to make the argument that a lot of his actions are kind of. I just feel like some people were saying that his actions pre the rape were like he was all great. Where like sending Kyle. I said this last episode. Sending Kyle to an island where you have you're in darkness for it. That is like a bad evil action. Whatever we think of Kyle, which I think very lowly of him, like that's evil. That's not that's an evil action he took. I would argue this one's tougher to kind of argue.
Would you rather he do that or he kill Kyle?
His intentions were good. He was trying to do something for Wintro.
Yeah, he's trying to do something for Wintro.
He says that, but I don't agree. I don't agree with that. I think his action, but the action was that he was sending him off.
And it opened up a potential liability in showing the location of Key and Keyhole Island to other people in order to save Wintro the pain of having a dead father.
But you remember that chapter, it didn't save Wintro from anything because it just mentally tore him apart because he didn't know what happened to his father. He didn't know if he could trust. But again, that's getting away from intent and action a little bit. But I still think it led his actions. Yeah.
You got to go down to like axioms at that point. You got to be like, what defines good and what defines evil and what defines good intentions and evil intentions.
Well, I think that's one of the biggest points that she was trying to make in this series with Kenneth. I really think she was trying to tear the reader on what they thought about him with intents and actions and good and evil and things like that. I mean, it's tough, and especially with Wintro. I think their relationship. I was thinking about it all yesterday when we were on the Discord and they were talking about it. Because Wintro's reaction to Althea being raped, he totally took Kenneth's side. Even when he saw Edda believe, that it happened, he still would not condemn Kenneth. And I think that's all from what Kenneth did to him all throughout the series. Now, you could argue that wasn't Kenneth's intent to have him on his side when he did something terrible. But
I mean, it was. It was, actually.
Yeah.
It's loyalty.
But I think exactly. So it's selfish actions.
Oh, yeah. Kenneth was a master gaslighter, and he broke people down and built them back up so that they were loyal to him.
I actually think it stunted Winter's development. And it's also, you got to remember he's so young. But I think those are all qualities of a villain in my mind. And in this read through, I was noticing it. I might be stretching it, but I still think, I don't know. I just have a hard time believing that the rape was what, like, so clearly, maybe he's the villain of the series, but into villain, like if there was a shade of villain and hero, or that it pushed him over. I think he was firmly in there before that.
Until he performed that rape, he hadn't done anything irretrievably bad against any of our major protagonists.
I would agree. I mean, I think the true villain is the themes of the series with toxic masculinity, these power developments, or the relationship of power, and a whole bunch of others. And he's the vehicle for the worst of that, and like the worst developments of how those things can take place in a person.
What happens when so-called civilized society doesn't have room for people who have displayed weakness?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
What happens to people without power in Bingtown? What happens to them in Jamala? What happens to them in Shalsed? What happens to them in the Rainwilds even? Rainwild seems the best of the bunch, but like they die slowly is what happens to them in the Rainwilds.
Yeah, so did you guys oh, yeah, I did want to ask this. So this is interesting. What is Kenneth's legacy? In the very first chapter we read with him, he's at the Others Island, and he asks them, he kind of says, do I get my wish, or am I going to fulfill, is my destiny going to come true? Something like that. And they say yes, and he stumps away happy. So Sean, what do you think his legacy is? Not as readers, like in the Hobb community, in this world,
Mm-hmm.
What's his legacy?
I think the legacy that he was asking about was to become Pirate King, which he essentially was.
Yep.
So I think the others gave him a pretty straight answer there. If
Good
you
job
want
with
to,
them.
yeah, if you want to talk about a legacy post death / post that main goal, you could talk about the lasting effect it'd have on the whole trader area. You can talk about his son, but I mean, I think his destiny was just him becoming Pirate King, at least for a little bit.
Yeah, you touched on it. What I was thinking, and Kip, if you agree with this, I think his legacy is one of maybe one of the biggest heroes in the realm of the Elderlings.
Yeah.
From people that don't, even people that know him, but aside from maybe Althea and Brashen and a few others, he's a hero. I mean, what he does with the satrap,
the common folk, he's a hero.
The common folk, definitely. But even the satrap in Malta, creating an alliance with a pirate, which all started with him. I mean, just look.
I don't think the satrap thinks anyone except him is a hero.
Well, he definitely thinks it. But on the broader scale, regular people in that world, they're going to be like, oh, satrap. I mean, people in that world probably think the satrap's a great person. So that's his legacy, is that he's...
Do they?
Again, not the people that maybe know him, or the Chalcedons that don't respect him. But as the overall population, like, he would be looked at as a massive figure in this world for what he's done.
The satrap?
No, Kenneth.
Okay. Kenneth, yeah.
No, Kenneth. And I think I really think it's a tough pill for people to swallow. I think it's incredibly realistic to the real world. But his ending is like a fairy tale ending. He goes out dying by saving the satrap.
Yeah.
But whether that was selfishly or not, he is looked upon as a hero. And I think Hobb was trying to say something by that. Even showing us him crossing the line into that full evil territory, and then giving him this kind of, even I think Althea said something that made her sick, that this is how people think of him on a high note.
I think the line that she's trying to draw there is that there's a lot of powerful people in history who are probably rapists, and they don't get remembered that way.
Definitely, 100% rapists or just terrible people, I would say, on a personal personal level. But are colored by doing a lot of good. And technically, if you just look on the surface, a lot of good, like you said, intent and action came from technically this Kenneth. I thought that was a really interesting idea of legacy and how history will look back on someone.
I do think that his son is also a big part of this social structure and just the future of this world. I don't know how yet, but I think it's part of the reason why Amber needed to find Wintrow.
I mean, I think Wintrow is Kenneth's legacy also.
Yeah, yeah,
And undeserved, maybe, maybe a little poisoned, but like Wintrow is Kenneth's legacy. He is the successor. And so is Edda.
I
exactly.
would argue
And
Edda
they're
definitely is the
the
successor.
parents
Yeah.
of son.
Well, even on a personal level, his legacy. I would, with Edda, one thing that stuck out reading this time when she asked Paragon, did Kenneth truly love me? And Paragon just lies. Paragon just lies, and so in her mind, the legacy is that Kenneth
good for
truly did
Paragon.
love her. Yeah.
Well,
thank God.
he also gave like a very Edda's smart. Edda's very smart, and as much as he could have, like, what were the exact wording?
It was a great chapter. I'd have to look it up, but he danced around he used his words wisely. I would say,
Yep.
in that regard. But it's interesting that even with people that knew him closest, so to speak, it's a faulty legacy he leaves behind. Positive, but again, totally untrue to how it actually was.
Yeah.
I will say, ask Sean, how did you like kind of realizing everything that happened with Paragon and Kenneth and that backstory? For me, that was kind of the more emotional aspects for me, especially when Kenneth first kind of sunk him and met him for the first time, or the first time in a while. I thought that really paid off because there was breadcrumbs throughout the series that these two had history together.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it really just showed how deeply rooted his backstory is into like that results in all of his actions in the series. I think that context just made for some good character work, made for some good reading. And I think it was just pretty genius to loop that into his character on Hobb's part. Although I do think that this is slightly related, I suppose, but I didn't love his send-off. I liked his send-off, but I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't like his send-off, but after talking with you guys, I'm kind of liking it more because it fits into the whole. It fits into his character because he's remembered as the hero, and he got a great send-off, and he didn't deserve it. Like at first, I was unsatisfied because of that, but now it honestly all makes sense to me now.
That's what I expect from Hobb.
Mhm.
I expect the villain to get a great send-off.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, I put this on here while we're on. I'm glad you talked about kind of his end. So Hobb has a thing where she doesn't like comeuppance. In the first with Regal, or at least comeuppance
Ugh.
by the hero's hand. I mean,
'Cause it's
Fitz
not
never
real.
really got Fitz. I mean, spoilers for this trilogy. But Fitz never really got revenge himself on Regal. You could argue that little, what was it, a ferret or something kind of did who was bonded. But that's a minor character getting it. In this one, Kenneth doesn't get comeuppance from Althea Brashen. He goes out dying by saving the satrap. And the worst one, I might
Satrap
have to
doesn't
go
get
off
his
this.
comeuppance either.
Who?
The satrap doesn't get his comeuppance either, really.
Yeah, well, he
No,
lives.
he emerges
But yeah.
stronger than ever.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but the worst one, and this this is probably my least favorite part of the book. With Kyle, I mean, the biggest. I think this was the worst decision by Hobb. Just a random arrow takes him out. All we've been through with this guy, and not even that I wanted him dead. The biggest mistake I think she made in this book that I wanted closure on. I wanted his family to have to face him again for how they've changed. I wanted Kefra to have to face him after this. I wanted
I didn't.
Malta.
I really
Malta.
didn't.
I think that I really did. I don't think she did either, and I think that's why a random arrow took him out. But that left me cold. Where I was like, man, the guy. First of all, never changed throughout the whole book. Only guy who's same book one to the last.
Respect.
Yeah, hey, stuck to his guns. But I do see a theme, and this also happens in the next trilogy. No spoilers. Sorry, Kip, but I'm not going to say about who. But there's something similar like this lack of comeuppance.
I forgot it was a random arrow. That's actually hilarious.
It
I
was a
completely
random
forgot.
arrow, right? It wasn't. Yeah.
Maybe.
Huh.
I don't remember. I don't remember at all. But it sounds right.
It was a random arrow. Didn't he like jump in front of someone jumped in front of him to save him or something like that?
Well, I think it was like aimed at Althea or something, and then like he
Yeah.
was making like noise out on the deck, like complaining and kind of hooting and hollering, and then they're like, "Oh, we'll just hit this easy."
If he'd been under deck, he would have been fine.
Or
right,
if he just.
that's where it was.
It's his own damn fault.
How did he get off the island again?
Oh, come on!
They brought him with Mama Ludluck.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Paragon's
yeah.
like, I know the heart of Kennet or something like that, and they went to the island.
Oh yeah, of course, of course.
Tongueless
Who
mom.
is unnamed, by the way. Mama
Mother.
Ludluck is unnamed.
Hmm.
Another evil thing, the man just leaves his mother on an island. Who knows how long?
No tongue.
Yeah.
I mean, decades.
Wow. Yeah,
Kennet also
it
just got
sounded-
killed randomly. Also, like Kennet gets stabbed by some no-name soldier, some no-name pirate. I mean, and then the
Yeah.
whole Paragon thing happens, which is like his true death, I suppose. But
See, that's why I think there's like capital D destiny in this world, and that it's enacted through the world, not necessarily just the people in it. But like sometimes the world just says, no, we need this to happen, and so it does.
Yeah, I mean, the Fool is kind of proof of that, right? I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
they talk about destiny. I mean,
the fool is convinced that they can't change anything.
Yeah, well, I like the quote at the end that Paragon kind of says that humans have little impact on the world. He tells Amber, and Amber's just like, oh, ship, was that meant to be comforting? Kind of that. But that was kind of sweet.
yeah, you have to mention though the specific part of. So Winter will not be a priest. It is probably
Yeah.
no more significant than if a man who was meant to be a king became a philosopher or recluse instead.
Yeah.
It's a little too on the nose, but I'm like, it's absolutely hilarious.
Oh, Fitz.
Yeah. How did we like her carving Fitz into Paragon's face? I think that's when I finally realized, like, hey, is this the Fool? I was like an idiot.
I didn't call that she was going to do that, but I thought it was going to be a young Paragon. Thought it was going to be like a
Interesting.
young Kennet carving that was under there.
That was a really cool moment though for me.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I can't help but think that Fitz is going to come upon this ship at some point now.
Looks a little familiar.
Yeah.
Or like someone is going to tell him a story of this ship that has a striking resemblance to him.
Yeah. I'm definitely really interested in possible crossover character meets later in the series.
No
Can we
comment.
talk a little bit about the memory transfer?
I'd love to.
Yeah. Start it up.
Okay.
You mean about Kennet going in general, or Kennet going into Paragon specifically?
Kennet giving his memories of trauma to Paragon and consigning Paragon to the depths with them. Because we haven't really talked about that yet.
So it's similar to Assassin's Quest with them revitalizing the dragons. And it's similar to just the transfer. It's similar to the creation of these dragons.
I get the like mechanism, and I'm totally fine with that. But I'm talking about like what impacts it has on his character and agency, that he's no longer completely mentally whole and that he did this to himself.
I see. So I was thinking about this earlier when we were talking about Althea and Kennet, which we've really only talked about Kennet, which is okay. But like she technically does, Althea that is, technically does give Paragon the pain of the rape. So I think the pain is given away, but she obviously retains the memories. And I think they obviously retain the trauma, which is why, and I think that's different, the trauma versus pain, which is why Kennet, despite having having given the pain of his childhood to Paragon in the past, um, the trauma of it still came up within his actions. That's how I interpret it, at least.
Hmm.
Like there's not really that visceral emotional response, but psychologically, maybe it still drives him, which is probably like a gray line there.
Okay.
And you kind of have to like suspend a bit of disbelief.
I mean, it's not suspending disbelief exactly, but I'm just trying to fit it into like the mechanisms of psychology that I know, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I see Kenneth as essentially repressing these memories, giving a portion of it to Paragon, and it seems like he's also given explicit memories, the exact memory of the events, but parts of those keep infiltrating their way back into his consciousness. He occasionally has these flashback images. He has these feelings of his heart racing, but occasionally he has more than just the implicit associations of like emotional trauma and pain. He has, and so I'm trying to figure out exactly which portions that he gave to Paragon.
Hmm.
So I know what you're saying. The implicit parts keeps popping up in his actions or his inner monologue, like they're whether he
Yeah.
knows it or not. And what did he give away? So yeah, it's tough. I was more thinking like, how does this? What is she saying about real life? You cannot give people your memories in real life. You know what I mean? So you're always
I
going to be
mean,
stuck
you
with.
can actually take a drug that when you go through memories again, it removes some of the trauma response from them. It's a beta
That's not
blocker.
real.
No, it's a beta blocker, and when you relive the memories, you no longer have that the heart racing, the blood pressure rising, those physiological responses which reinforce the memory usually. But if you experience the memory without those physiological responses, it actually serves to lessen the trauma.
That's kind of what
And
I
you
was saying.
and yeah, and you can rebuild your explicit memories of the event, or you can recall them without suffering so much from your implicit memories of the event.
And I think you can like uh I think you can do that and still be have your psychological mindset affected by that trauma without feeling
Yep.
pain in the moment, and like your actions are guided by the fact that you know what has happened to you and how you react to that. Like you can still Kenneth can still have that power struggle within himself and want to be above others because he knows what happened to him, and he knows how life can be without actually kind of feeling that heart racing and whatnot at every moment. So I think that that's kind of where the dance between the two is.
I'm just wondering if he helped himself with that, or if he retarded his long-term healing with that.
Yes.
I think he never dealt with his trauma. I think he gave the explicit memory to Paragon, but I think that implicit one was always factoring in until eventually the explicit memory came back, even in little jumps. It would like little scenes. He'd get little flashes of it coming back and like remembering what happened because he never dealt with the trauma initially. He just tried to bury it.
I'd like to like wonder about how much of that was based on A, his charm that was insulating him from the effects of harmful magic, and B, his resurrection on Vivacia by Wintro
Mm.
when their souls merged and maybe something fell out of place in the
That's a
old stuff that he and Paragon did.
sorry, but that I my second read through. That's the second time he's been revived. He was revived. Paragon revived him as a
He was
kid.
revived by Paragon. Yep,
So
first.
that's another, and so that's. I
That
mean,
has
he's
effects on you.
I think he's clearly not a whole person. I think that's what they were getting at. Whether giving the memories away, having to be revived, I think
Yep.
takes out of you. And I think this is him become, they said becoming whole, as Paragon was. Someone I saw like in some discussion threads, they were saying he's like practically a forged. uh,
Huh.
Ken was.
I mean,
don't know.
he's not far off from that. Like he's a forged without the negative intent.
Right.
Well, he has like has forged people have a specific intent of like staying alive, I guess. It's been a while. And his intent is just like the soul ambition.
Is to keep this person, this specific person, Kenneth Ludluck, alive.
Yeah. But I do think he made the wrong decision. And I do think Paragon shouldn't have offered that, although I don't blame him in the moment. Like I think giving away of these memories, giving away your pain, has Hobb has shown it to be the wrong decision. I think it was the wrong decision.
I agree.
I was upset with Althea that she ended up doing that. Well, I was more so upset with Hobb for writing Althea to do that because I think that would have been a good character moment for her to kind of like work through it themselves. And I don't know. That was one thing that
So
annoyed me.
what was she trying to say with that? Because I've been thinking about that all day yesterday and today. So Althea did the same exact thing with Paragon. Paragon insisted. Like I was trying to think, what's the difference? Like Kip kind of alluded to. What is she going to be like? Is she going to
No,
be
I'm pissed
like
about
Kenneth? And so like I said, I assume it's because she's dealing with it by telling other people and having people she loves, letting them in on this secret, whereas he didn't. I assume that's the difference. But I'm trying to think what her point was with that, and Paragon taking that pain from her, because it was the pain, not the memory. Like you said, she still
Yeah.
has it like
Yep.
a thing, but it's
The
the
pain.
implicit pain, so she can move on with the life. But like we can't do that in the real world, like you said, Sean. We can't give unless you have this awesome drug, but you can't give pain to people
Sci-fi
to
drug.
take so you can live your life. You have
It's a
to.
real drug.
Nope.
I know.
But no, I was very angry about that just because, like, I feel like one could argue that the crux of Kenneth's character is Hobbs saying, you need to feel your pain, you need to process your emotions, you need to go through whatever you need to go through, you need to have it become part of your person. There's multiple quotes here that kind of support that fact. Ronica talking about self-pity,
Yep.
um,
Yep.
and there's also the one about deciding what path you follow depending on what happens to you. So I feel like she like one could argue her thesis statement is that, and then she as Althea just reject that. Like that could have tied in perfectly with the thesis statement. She could have been different. It would have been a beautiful moment. Instead, it just kind of it really fell flat for me.
You know what I would have loved as an epilogue? A moment 15 years down the line where Althea brings back those memories, that pain from Paragon, re-experiences it, and releases him from that burden. Like,
That'd be great.
maybe she wasn't ready for it then, but maybe she could fix it eventually.
You say you're mad at Althea. I was mad at Paragon. He was the one that was
Well, yeah,
brought her
Paragon
out to
too.
that ship.
I'm mad at
Kinda,
Paragon too.
I-
Yep,
yeah,
I'm
I
mad at
said-
both of them.
I was more so mad at Hobb for writing it that way because I think
Yeah,
that was
right.
just not like it wasn't concise and satisfying. But yeah, more so Paragon. I don't blame Althea at all.
I won't be mad at Hobb for making that kind of decision because she just doesn't let her characters be happy and make right decisions.
if we ever,
That was the right
If she-
decision, and it would make her less happy. She could have gave us that.
if she ever listens to this podcast and wants to talk to us, that'd be the first question I would ask
Oh,
her.
that'd be
is, like,
amazing.
No.
Because I'm not so much mad as you said. I want to know what, like, not the point, but what it meant. Like, why,
Maybe that pain is truly just such like a little drop in the bucket to Paragon and he barely even notices it.
Hey, you talk about trauma in this series. You could argue he's victim number one. What he's gone through of this.
Yeah.
You probably forgot it all immediately.
Mr. has a boat who has tried to commit suicide multiple times.
That was heart wrenching. That when he
And it's not
Amber-
even like murder suicide. It's like massacre suicide every time he does it.
True.
Okay, should we? I got a lot more notes, but you want to jump into some questions from Discord?
Yeah. we also have to talk about anything that doesn't take place on the boat in chapter 26 on. We haven't left that
seriously,
boat.
it's that's true, I guess.
But yeah,
It's
questions.
just
Let's
such
go.
a big, it's just such a big thing. All right, we'll go with Cody's question first to mix it up. Hopefully, we don't go right back to Kenneth. All right,
We will.
Cody asked, thinking of who they started out as versus who they ended as, which character have your opinions changed the most about? Was there someone you loved but ended up hating, or vice versa?
Every single character.
Fair.
Kyle?
POV character, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, they say POV. That's right. I have one if you guys need to think about it.
Can this be where I pitch Malta as the main character of the trilogy?
Oh, go. She need. I can't believe
I think she's the main character of a different trilogy.
Could be. But no, I mean, well, maybe I could say protagonist. I don't know. But I think, or even hero in a way. But
Sure.
I think she has the most development. She goes through a full arc from like ignorant and selfish, and it's completely changed by the end. I think she goes through the most change. She becomes out the other side a completely different person for the better. And I think that if you think of like the hero's journey, the hero's arc, like what a main character is in a story, I think she's the closest to that, despite not being fully enveloped into the main plot at times. So my answer is Malta for that.
Malta is the person who exhibits the most ability to let go of what is in the past and is not serving her in the present.
Love that. And it's true.
I thought it was interesting pairing her with the satrap because they kind of, in a way, mirror each other or what could have been. I think the satrap is a victim of his kind of setting, so to speak. He even talks about his childhood and just he's always around yes men and things like that.
Yep.
And I think the same would have been with Malta if she stayed in that same Bingtown, babied by Kyle, but getting her out of
if her family had remained rich.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So by circumstance, I guess just to say, she's a change in environment. That's what I'm trying to get at. Her change in environment allowed her to change into a better person and what it is. Whereas I feel also because she's younger, whereas the satrap, I feel like his environment up until that point, obviously, but his environments as a prince king the whole time has made him the spoiled baby that you see who doesn't take any, who just can't survive on his own. Whereas Malta, I think the change in environment was the best thing that happened to her in the series. And that's why you had that growth. Whereas if she just stayed with Kyle and, like you said, going to balls, and she'd have a whole different life and she'd be a whole different terrible person that she was in the first book.
Now I really want like a scene 6 months where Althea recognizes that she's made a bad decision and takes her pain back.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, who knows? So Kip, other than every character, do you have one specific character that flipped the switch, or you hated and loved, or now loved and hated?
I mean, we've talked about Kenneth. Ronica, I guess.
Wow.
That's a good answer.
I was not a huge fan of her when she took the ship away from Althea. Really wasn't. I was a fan of her before that and quite a bit after that. But in that phase, no. Not a fan at all. I had severe dislike.
Yeah, it's tough. That whole like side plot with Sean at the beginning, it kind of was a drag. The Bingtown stuff and Ronica kind of on her own with Cirilla and kind of getting everyone together. I mean, I did like the world building aspect of like the new traders and what are they? The 3 ship traders.
Yeah, the 3 ship families. I thought the Bigtown aspect was surprisingly weak, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, I mean, it's the weakest part of the book, I think.
Yep.
For sure, and Ronica kind of carried that, I think,
she
to
did.
Make it semi-readable.
I thought the the interactions with Tintaglia carried it, with a bit of Ronica as well.
That's a good point. God bless Tintaglia.
It was surprising how much could burn in the city, and yet it could still recover.
I know. Yeah, that's a good answer. Those are two. I'm going to go on the opposite direction of what Cody asked. I'm going to go with someone I loved. I don't know if I'll say hated, but I think totally lost respect for. And Sean called this out. I don't mean to go back to this kind of. I don't mean to go back to the ship again. But Sean said this in the first episode where I said, I think the best character in the series is Wintro. And Sean's like, maybe in this book, but not so much later. And I was like, I don't remember that. Reading this book.
I kind of hated Wintro in this book.
Me too, 100%. Yep. I don't want to go back to that rape, but what he did to Althea, the way he treated her, was honestly, I lost so much respect for him. I know he's young and I know he's impressionable, but it was brutal. I was like, this kid is awful. How do he even? The biggest thing was even after Edda, he realized his aunt was raped, and he still would make excuses or wouldn't act. I lost so much respect for him. It was unbelievable.
He lost all of his personal sense of direction.
Right.
All of it.
Yeah.
I mean, he. What was his direction? I mean, you said, he was gaslight.
Following Kenneth. That's what. Yeah,
that's what it was. Exactly what it became. And again, that's why
following Kenneth and then lusting after Edda. Those were his two directions in this book.
Do not blame him for that. Edda is a very desirable woman, but still, it's just, I don't know. I was like taken aback how much I disliked him after my first read through. I remember being like Paragon and Wintro. Those are my two. I loved reading about those guys, and now I'm like, man, he just even coming out of it, I guess he's a better leader, and he's going to try to be a father to Kenneth's son.
That came out of nowhere, by the way, that he was a leader on the ship.
Totally. I was like, how? Yeah. I mean, I could understand that he could run the ship reasonably well following Kenneth, but that people would look up to him and respect him following like a massive battle. I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You're right. It was a little hard to believe.
We'd never seen him like giving orders to the crew at any other time.
Right.
Never.
Yeah. And it was just kind of like mild respect for him, mostly just because Kenneth.
Yeah. He was Kenneth's priest, not Kenneth's like next in line.
Right. Like Edda, that would be more believable if Edda was the one who kind of took
much more believable control. If Edda was the one who took control. Much more believable.
Even at like the bargaining table when they were bargaining with the satrap, like Wintro was kind of taking command. I'm like, oh, what? Sorka would be like, no. Like Edda's the one they all look up to. Yeah.
I did like when Edda told him that she said, I don't want to raise this child alone. And he answered, I promise you won't have to. That was a good moment.
That was his only redeeming moment.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, overall, he's a good person, obviously. But I think that one instance, I think it shows a lot about.
I don't know if he is a good person anymore.
Well, I think it really tainted him with the Althea situation. You're right. I actually don't either. I don't know what I'm talking about. But everything other than that, he didn't do anything bad. Like he has good intentions, as we said, but he's a coward. He's a punk. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like that was such a punk, just a punk move. You don't back up your family when she's saying I was raped. It's like,
yep.
And Kenneth told him in that one scene, he snapped at Wintro, said, Althea's mine. I can do as I want. It's like, what? I would. What? And you're still.
That's a confession, buddy.
Yeah. Well, he knew it. He knew it after
Yep.
Knew it. So, I mean, I lost. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. He's disgusting, Wintro.
Wintro was an abused child at that point.
That's it.
He hadn't fallen under Kyle, but he did fall under Kenneth.
It's because Kyle used physical force.
Yep, Kyle was brutal and blunt and obvious about things. Kenneth was subtle and soft and manipulative.
Like the religion of Sa, maybe.
Yes.
I don't know enough about the religion.
I mean, I also don't know if Sa is real, but the meditation that he seems to perform, those sure seem real.
Remember in like his first chapter in Ship of Magic where that one like older priest was like, once you get out on the boat, you might find that you'll be changed as a person a bit.
Yep.
I mean, in
Yeah.
that moment, it was like, okay, this is obviously going to happen, but little did we know how true that would be.
Didn't know it'd go in that
Little do we
direction.
know that he's going to be a pirate captain.
Yeah.
I did one thing I noticed was I don't know if this was intentional or not, but so all of the chosen ones, quote chosen ones in this book, were all siblings. Wintrow is the chosen pirate lord. Malta is apparently an elderling now, and
Yep.
Selden is like the dragon's right hand man, chosen. And that's all the Vestrit family, which I thought intentional
Hmm.
or not, I don't know, but I thought that was interesting. Speaking of people who acted over their age, Selden. I mean, that guy turned into like a 25-year-old. I
Yeah.
don't know.
He drowned in the memories.
Assistant. That's true. I didn't catch that the first time. When I first read through, I'm like, why is this kid acting like a middle-aged man, like an assistant to Tintaglia? And then like you said, her memories kind of go into him, and
Yep.
yeah,
It's pretty great how probably in Ship of Magic I would barely be able to tell you his name, and then Ship of Destiny
I know.
I was just like, I love this guy. And like he was like the only voice of reason in Big Town for a while. At one point he was telling Rain, like, why would Tintaglia lie about Malta? Like she's too high and mighty to care about us. Like that'd be such a pointless thing to lie about. And I was like, finally a voice of reason here. Listen to this kid. Plus, I just love the whole mixing of dragon and human when it comes to their relationship and what they can get from each other. I think that is hinting at a larger thesis statement for the realm of Elderlings overall, which I was eating up. Like when Rain showed compassion to her and gave her food when like he barely had any herself, but Tintaglia in
Hmm.
return has like the intellect and how like they need each other. So all of that stuff I was a fan of in this book.
I laughed so hard when I was reading Rain's internal monologue and he was about to attack a sea
Oh yeah.
cow.
Oh yeah.
That was that was probably like the best humor in that book. It reminded me of the previous like book. I think it was the previous one or the one where Kenneth told Malta to or not Malta told Edda to teach Winter to be a man. She teaches him like knife fighting. I thought this was like
Hmm.
Yeah,
equally as funny as like Rain, thinking easy prey. She
easy
can do
prey.
humor. She can do humor. Um,
When it comes at like lethal risk, yeah, sure.
yeah. Since you brought it up, Sean, a Huron fan question: what intended consequences do you see because dragons are back?
Yeah, that was like half of what would be my answer to that question. So you guys can take it from here.
Additional prices to raising livestock.
Yeah.
I don't want to give away spoilers, so I've already ruined other books for Kip. So I'll let Kip. Any predictions of what's dragons being back mean? Or
There's going to be new dragon riders, obviously. Uh, maybe with more comfortable perches than being clasped in claws. Uh, there's going to be continuity of civilization and probably a resurgence of skill users and possibly industrialization. And we'll see how that goes.
At one point, Tintaglia mentions that Rain is dreamwalking to Malta, and then she was like, "Oh, she thought only Elderlings could do this." So, and Fitz did that with Molly in Farseer. So,
Yep.
I mean,
Well, the Farseer royal line has always had talent with the skill.
yeah, but so it seems like there's a skill Elderling connection, which is not exactly a revelation here, but I like how there's more
Yeah,
concrete
no.
evidence in that part. And also the relationship between dragons and humans increase humans' lifespan, which is also kind of a cool tidbit.
Hmm. I like the implication that there's going to be a bit harder a magic system imposed,
I think so.
or at least that a bit more language will be used for it.
right, we'll see. Yeah, I thought my biggest takeaway was Elderlings. I'm like, oh, so there's going to be new Elderlings now because there's dragons, and
I mean, that's
that's
obvious.
yeah.
Yeah.
But how's that going to affect, the kind of, like you said, the hierarchy in this world?
Well, it seems like this world is pretty much unpopulated in certain areas. At least most of the areas that we've seen.
A lot of room to grow.
A lot of room to grow.
I mean, there was a cataclysm of sorts, which is why
Yes.
the dragons
Yes.
were in such a rough situation.
I wonder if maybe something can be done about some ice caps reforming, and we can get some of those mountains back. I don't know, because the inundation seems to be severe.
This one made me laugh. Any character development didn't feel real. Spoilers. For me, it was a satrap. Dude was a tool. I don't know if I agree with that. Well, he's definitely a tool. But
I think his character development didn't seem as extensive as everybody else's, but if anybody can put a face on something, it's the satrap.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was the same person as he was when we met him. I think there was like a blip where he had in the bargaining scenes with Malta. There's like a blip of him, what he could become if he put effort into changing and being a better person. But just at the end with that dinner where Rain and Malta were at, he reverts back to the same person he was, spoiled, just maybe some respect for Malta. But other than that, he didn't. It's realistic. He didn't change.
Some respect for Malta is a big change.
Okay, it took this woman saving your life repeatedly, but I think that's believable. I mean, I don't think that's uncharacteristic to have a minimal respect, at least for someone that,
No. But it was like a very positive light at the end on the satrap, at least on the surface of things. Sure. And it's one of those chapters which, I could have done without that whole thing.
I know that was what I was thinking of when you said the last 10%. I'm like, oh, so we're just at a ball up at Dramilia or wherever that city is, and just hunky dory, and we're wearing dresses.
We're wearing dresses, we're being pretty, everyone's getting a large amount of money, which is going to pay them back for all of the travails that they have incurred during this trilogy. Some people are finding buried treasure, some people... No. So unnecessary. Everyone didn't need to get their spelled out happy ending at the end.
I needed it. I needed some blip of happiness. I would... Cirilla, maybe? I mean, she takes a hard turn into being a helpful person. She was not evil.
She's getting a happy ending. She's getting a happy ending.
Yeah, but is it characteristic that she would turn into such an ally so quick? Or is it just that she saw the power was shifting and that she wanted to move towards... You know what I mean?
She had no principles other than self-survival.
Much like Kenneth, yeah.
And as long as she can maintain a lifestyle which is at or equal to a big town trader, then she's happy.
Because that was her entire self-worth.
Yep. And it was her goal. Her goal was to escape being a companion of the heart and to become a big town trader, which is an impossible goal for most people, but she did it.
She did the homework, huh?
By faking it till you make it.
Yeah, she faked it till she make it. She usurped a whole bunch of prerogatives, and then she came to a soft landing with the Vestrit family, who could have thrown her off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not super happy with Cirilla's storyline, honestly, but I'm not supposed to be happy about any of them, so I'm fine with that.
Yeah, well, yeah, that is kind of true. It's a weird thing to talk about, but I did feel fulfilled by everyone's storyline, but I wasn't happy with I feel bad for where everyone's left off, except maybe Jack. Yeah. She seems pretty thrilled, but there's a lot of stuff that Brashen and Althea have to work through. Lord knows Wintro has to work through some stuff. Malta and Rain have to adjust to their. I mean,
they've got to found a new civilization.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pretty much. Big Town has to be rebuilt, and I don't know. So it's not this one's for you, Kit. Well, for all of us, but I think Lady Sweden was looking at you. Which romantic partnership were you most rooting for? The most unanswerable question we've ever been asked.
Grag and Brashen.
Oh, together? Oh. There's a little I could a little sexual tension between those two. I felt it, every time they
There was a
talked
little
about
bit.
each
It was
other.
there. It was
It
there.
was there.
Yeah.
I was thinking that. I'm like, I see it.
But realistically, Althea and Brashen, despite both of their problematic issues around consent.
They both have definite problems in that regard, and definite issues that they need to work out. Um, yeah, even like it was after the rape. It really stuck with me, that scene. I think where she didn't want to have sex with him, and he took it as one way, kind of selfishly, like she's not into
She's
me.
leaving for Vivacia tomorrow, and she doesn't want me
Yeah,
anymore.
right, exactly.
But then
And
they
it's like,
talked about it,
which is the biggest thing. Finally, I mean,
which was huge.
they wouldn't recover if they didn't talk about it. That would have been a big stake in the middle of their relationship, because they both had different, they thought different things, they assumed different things.
Paragon would have had to fix it for them. Like Ophelia, you had to fix things for Althea earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what just
and then Paragon did fix things. Yep.
They're just relationship counselors for the people that sail them.
True. I did find Althea and Brashen's relationship to be another reason why I found this book to be weaker than the other two. I liked how they were way more communicative throughout the book. They actually talked to each other and expressed their problems, but I just don't really like the relationship. They don't have a lot of chemistry on the page for me. And I never found it believable that Althea would settle down with anyone. I was always a fan of her just being a pirate, or a sailor, whatever.
She didn't exactly settle down.
Yeah.
She's first mate.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Mm-hmm. But I still just I thought that there was a lot of page time devoted to their relationship that I just didn't care about it. I didn't find it entertaining.
Yeah, I liked it because of what Kip said, that she's not settling. I mean, that was her biggest fear, was settling in Bingtown with stay-at-home mom while someone else goes out to sea. And now we're led to believe that her and Brashen will be living a life together, so as equals close to equals on the Paragon.
To me, it's really weird to think that she's just going to trust that Wintrow survives forever, though. Because what happens when the Vestrit on Vivacia dies?
I don't know.
Does anything happen anymore?
Well, she's already quickened, so
she's already quickened, but live ships are supposed to have a member of their family on board. Are we past that now that she's a dragon?
Probably.
Right. That she's a dragon, that it takes away from that rule.
Althea will be on board though, right? Or is she on Paragon?
No, Althea's on Paragon.
Right. Okay. And then so just Wintrow is on Vivacia. Yeah, that is valid. Maybe she could make the switch over if need be.
Because she leaves Vivacia because she has Wintrow, and also because Vivacia doesn't want her anymore.
I don't think it's Wintrow so much as that Vivacia's whole without her. And she realized that she was not whole. She needed Vivacia more than Vivacia needed her.
Yeah, I think Vivacia's a strong, independent ship that don't need no Vestrit.
And can now seal out blood. That was something that I picked up on as soon as it happened, by the way, and I felt very proud.
I remember that.
That she could what?
When blood didn't immediately sink into Wizardwood for the first time, I was like, ooh, what just happened?
That's something. Yeah. What did we think about Bolt? Was that an interesting arc? I got tired of her a little bit.
I got tired of Bolt.
Yeah.
I got very tired of Bolt.
Yeah.
Didn't like wasn't a fan of the name, wasn't a fan of her.
No.
Right.
Also, I don't like the shortening of Lightning Bolt to Bolt.
I kept thinking of that Pokemon Boltoon.
I kept thinking of the dog from the movie.
The electric dog.
Yeah. Oh, the dog. Oh, you're thinking of John Travolta. I see. Yeah, Miley Cyrus. It was a good movie.
What?
Bolt, right? Isn't that who was voiced? Bolt, the dog, was John
No,
Travolta?
Wait, what?
that can't be right. That can't be right.
Listen, I'll stake my whole reputation on this. I know Miley
Did I
Cyrus
see
was
Bolt in
definitely.
theaters?
Played by John
Bolt.
Travolta.
There we go.
Wow.
Say no more.
Wow.
I watched that myself. There was no kids
Wow.
present. That was just
Yeah.
myself.
Okay.
This one just for Kip, Lady Sweden. Biggest surprise for our newbie Kip with this trilogy, and how many years before you do the next? At least
Ooh.
three.
Less than one.
I needed a big break after this. I didn't read the months.
I don't know how long it's going to be until I'm back to this one. It turned out to be 3 last time. We'll see how it goes. It's not going to be as long this time because I was prepared. But what was the biggest surprise? The biggest surprise was that Kenneth did it.
Yeah, that was the big. You knew something was coming, right? You knew something bad was going to
I
happen.
knew something was coming, but I didn't know what it was going to be, and it turned out to be Kenneth. Turned out to be Kenneth raping Althea. I wasn't prepared.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I thought he had an opportunity. And he did, and he threw it away.
It's the biggest trick that Hobb plays on us. Let us on a string.
Yep.
Oh, everyone wants to know about Kenneth. All right, combat.
They should be satisfied with our answers already. What we talked about.
Kenneth could have convinced Wintrow to stay without the help of Edda. Could he? How do we feel about Edda? She's one of the more fascinating characters of the book to me. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know what else there is to say about Edda. I think the pivotal moment to me was that conversation with Paragon. I mean, everyone was in Kenneth's sphere was abused by him, whether they knew it or not. And Edda, I mean, just you said she's a smart person, Kip, and she totally
Yep.
is. But it was blinded by her intelligence was blinded by her hopefulness of Kenneth, the same hopefulness the readers had of Kenneth.
I mean, and it wasn't just hopefulness, it was what he'd done for her.
Yeah, true.
Like
Taking
all
her
the
out.
things that he'd done for her. Lifting her up out of being a prostitute at a whorehouse that was trying to get rid of her.
Yeah, did not care for her. The lead maiden or whatever they're called.
Yep. The
Uh,
madam.
The madame. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a good point. It's adoration for what he did for her.
Yep. And then he got Wintrow to teach her.
Teach her to read. I know. The intent versus action thing is nuts in this book. Just his intent was not. He could care less if she knew how to read. It was mostly to get her away from him.
Edda became Kenneth's biggest apologist.
Yeah.
And the most successful, honestly, at converting Wintrow over to Kenneth's side. And if Edda had died and Kenneth had survived, I would hate Edda a little bit. I would feel a lot of pity for her. I would try and understand her and sympathize with her position, but I would have hated Edda for perpetuating abuse onto a next cycle.
Wait, so if Edda died, you would hate her?
Yeah.
Huh.
Because she wouldn't have had an opportunity to fix what she'd done with Wintrow.
Oh, I see.
That's an interesting line of thinking that I probably agree with.
Yeah, I'd have to think on that. But do you think Wintrow would have stayed with Kenneth if Edda wasn't involved?
I don't think Wintrow would have been persuaded into giving himself over to Kenneth if Edda hadn't been there.
I disagree.
I don't think Kenneth was persuasive enough on his own. I think Wintrow saw some of the holes, saw some of the inconsistencies, and Edda worked to paper those over. They would have these conversations after Kenneth would do something, and Edda would look at him with disgust and explain how what Kenneth was doing was helping everyone, and how could Wintrow still lack faith in him after all that he has done. And Wintrow would come over to Edda's side on those things. Edda made a much stronger and more impartial case for Kennit's actions than Kennit often did.
All of that is true, and you're right. She would always, whenever he had the doubts and he was on the fence, Edda would always pull him back onto the side. But
Yeah.
true, that is true. The only reason I don't think he would ever, I don't think he had the courage to fully go against Kennit and just say you're wrong and leave him. And I think unless he had someone else who was,
Active resistance is not the threshold I'm trying to pass here. What I'm trying to what really signifies Wintrow being put on Kennit's side is Wintrow setting his primary goal as assisting Kennit in his duties.
right.
I don't think he would have gotten there without Edda.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like unless there was someone who was the opposite of Edda, who was on that other side of the fence, telling him like confirming what he's suspecting that Kennit is in the wrong here. I don't think he ever fully. I just don't think he doesn't make decisions at the end of the story. Whereas like with Kyle, in the beginning, he did. He was like, "I'm getting off this ship. I'm escaping my father." You know, and I think he regressed as a person with Kennit.
Yeah.
Where he was just in this limbo where he had the devil on one shoulder, the angel on the other, and I don't think he would ever fully. I think it would take longer. I think it was much quicker because of Edda. I think Edda really helped move it along. That those three are all in it together for Kennit's cause, but I just don't see him having the, for lack of a better term, the cojones to ever divert from that path of being Kennit's follower.
I think he would have had to have been pushed to something really extreme, but I think it would have resulted in the same thing that happened under Kyle, where he let the slaves free. If he had an opportunity, he might seize it.
True. That's a good point. Yeah. He had it in him before. He definitely did. You're right.
Until he found that opportunity, though, no, I don't think he would go against Kennit, because that's suicide. And although Kennit's not against although Wintrow is not necessarily against being a martyr, he sometimes struggles to identify the correct moments for it.
Well said. Ooh, this question's from Sean. I didn't see you add this on here, Sean. And this, I was thinking about this so much. I don't know the answer, so maybe you do.
We've kind of alluded to it, but yeah, go for it.
So why does Amber want Wintrow alive? Why is he the person of destiny? As in, like why is he the destiny figure that needs to be? And she even said she doesn't know. She talks to Wintrow and asks, like, "Do you know your path?" And Wintrow's like, "I don't know," and it leaves the fool kind of unsure if this was the right decision to follow him.
So, I think that it's kind of weird because there's a good chance that Amber just found him too late and he had already done the things that he needed to do. So he let out that one serpent from the prison.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was probably huge.
That's true. Good point.
And could be the main thing right there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's not really satisfying for Amber to narrative-wise, for Amber to be looking for him this whole time, finally sees him, and it's like, oh yeah, like a book and a half ago, that was the big moment. It could also be related to Kennit's child. I think it's one of those two things. Related to dragons, related to Kennit's child, mix of both. That's where I'm at with it.
I think you have to know what Amber's, the fool, what her goal is. I don't want to say
I don't
what
think
it is.
she knows what her goal is.
Yeah, no comment. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say no comment.
We gotta hold back a bit on this question.
Yeah, I do. I think I do. Yeah. Anyway, all right.
She seems to worry about it quite a bit, and if she's doing the right thing in order to achieve it during the course of these stories, she seems to waver back and forth if she even has the ability to affect events at all.
Very true. I think that's why I loved her conversation with Paragon, where she says Paragon says humans don't really make that much of a difference, and it kind of crushes her.
Could you imagine Wintrow returning to the monastery and becoming the abbot? Can you imagine, becoming the leader of the religion? Could you imagine that happening?
It's weird. It's like, I would like to see that, or just returning something, their old lives. I wish we would have got some confrontation of their old lives, whether Ronica now seeing Malta again, or Kefir seeing Malta again. With, like you said, there was a 10% prologue. It was like a 10% prologue or epilogue of things that I didn't really need. Like I would have
Yep.
preferred if they went
Yep.
back to Bingtown, that 10% epilogue.
I didn't need the last serpent chapter. I didn't need a lot of the serpent chapters.
I was gonna say, dude,
What was the one serpent that died? Like one of the main serpents. I felt so bad for them.
Malkin.
Did Malkin die?
I don't remember. Well, She Who Remembered died. I forgot about that in the
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, she who remembered
that's-
she couldn't make it up the river.
Tough hell.
That's
for
what I
her.
was thinking about. Yeah. Yeah. That's sad.
I forgot about that one. Is there any other? I have like a bunch of things I want to rapid fire. Is there any other questions? I don't want to miss out. I don't want to do anyone dirty. Thank you for asking questions, by the way. Everyone on
Malkin
Discord.
survived.
Malkin did survive. Okay.
Yep.
I want to see Dragon Malkin.
I know. I want to see them all.
One quick thing on the dragons. It's interesting how these dragons have like poison breath,
Mm-hmm.
but the ones in the six duchies had fire breath. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see different elements.
Maybe they have both.
Maybe.
Or maybe there's different types, different colors of dragons. Who knows?
Well,
Yeah.
The dragons from the first trilogy,
Yeah, they breathe fire.
but they weren't.
But these had like they weren't real.
They weren't real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
They weren't real dragons. They
Probably.
were like those like rock dragons, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So these are.
That's true.
Honestly, I don't know where the fire came from with the rocks. I'd have to reread it, but yeah, these are like this was the first real living dragon the Six Duchies has
Yeah.
seen.
Yes.
Question. Combat Oscar asked for me for Yetti Beats. How many times did Ship of Destiny make you cry? This book was a gun punch for me. Tears were shed. This is true. I am very Todd-like in my tears. I will say surprisingly, and I put this in my notes, one of the most moving parts, I think Sean talked about it a little bit, was Kenneth's death, the handing over from Vivacia to Paragon. I was kind of moved, kind of got water in my eyes, and I'm like, why am I crying about this this piece of garbage? But then when you remind everything that's happened to him in his past and kind of what it means for Paragon and just making sure he dies on that ship, I thought it was honestly fairly beautiful. Yeah, I don't know if I had too many tears of, the rape was just, I didn't cry, but I was just in shock. I was legit in shock, walking dazed in my room.
I was in shock because that's when I made my point about destiny being in this universe, and
Yeah.
Kenneth's destiny suddenly. Because to me, that is the crisis point. That is the like, what's the word? What's the word that the Fool uses for those points?
Oh, I don't know. Oh,
the things that need the catalyst, right?
Yeah.
But what?
I forget that.
There's a name for the events that can be shifted by a catalyst, and I think Kenneth and perhaps Wintro, because their souls are intermingled, but they're the catalyst of this series.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it was Kenneth that said, "There is no such thing as extraordinary coincidence. There is only destiny."
Yeah. And he didn't really believe it, but.
Oh
yeah.
I love that segue. Huron asked, "What's the biggest theme of this trilogy?" Which I think can go in a lot of directions. Do you think it's destiny? Is it something else? I think it's something
No,
else.
I think it's
be able to move on from your
trauma.
trauma.
One of the quotes.
Yes, nailed it.
Yeah, like that.
Trauma.
In one of the quotes you put, Yetti, the part of it, just perhaps people have a right to their pain. He hazarded. Reluctantly, he added, perhaps they even need it.
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah.
Well, I highlighted that because keep reading. That's all I got to say. That was like, this applies to bigger things than just this book. But definitely.
Perhaps they even need it, Althea.
Yeah, that's why I'm pissed. Take it back. Get that pain back.
But you're right. It's trauma, right? I mean, trauma and what it does to a person, and what path they choose, and what they do with that trauma, what they make of it, I guess, so to speak, or positive and negative. I mean, look at Cirilla, the trauma she faced. She turned into, power hungry. Kenneth, we obviously know what it did to him. Paragon, look what it did to him. He hid from him. He would just sat on the shores forever and just hid himself away. Althea, she almost went down a path of isolating people, and it's. I think trauma is definitely the whole point of this story. Destiny too.
Yeah.
I could see an argument with Destiny.
Mhm.
I think in this series, I've finally started to come to grips with how Hobb intertwines her character's destinies with the like metatextual narrative of her stories.
Mhm.
What do you mean?
And like the climax of the book was chapter 26 for me, and that's weird, but it's where it happened. And everything after that felt inevitable. Everything up until that point could have changed. Things could have gone a different way. And then that happened, and then everything fell into place from there on.
Well said. And it feels like that too, one after another. It's like, and now things are happening because this decision was made.
All the final decision that had been stretched out for so long got made, and then that was the beginning of the end. There were no further like pivotal decisions to be made. Everything was done there.
Can I say real quick, because this was brought up a couple times, I think, on the Discord, like for people reading through it, and I thought this was obvious, and I think it is. People were like, was Kenneth sexually attracted to Wintro?
100%.
No shit.
Always was. Always has been.
Day one. That was a day one thing. But it's like, it's funny how people were like, wait a second. It's like, yeah, is he? And I think that's like, and they made a big point of that when he met Althea, how much she looked like Wintro. You know what I mean?
Honestly, if you miss that was happening in this story, then I do not trust anything you have to say about gay subtext in literature ever again.
Yeah.
I mean, they couldn't have made it more obvious. I mean, honestly.
I think it's a little problematic for Hobb to have Kenneth be raped and then lead to that attraction, but there's more to unpack there, probably.
Oh yeah, Kenneth died with scads of unresolved trauma.
Yeah.
All right, we've been killing it. We've been going long. I'll do rapid fire on anything else we kind of missed. Kip's question. Any of the ones you. Is it possible to get away from people's visual perceptions coloring their view of you?
I thought that was a fun thing that was interwoven into this book, was that someone's visual presence, their presentation, their physical appearance was constantly affecting their relationships with other people. Constantly.
Althea with Kefra. She dressed like a
Althea
man.
with Kefria, Malta with everybody.
Brashen, dressed like a pirate.
Ronica made quite the transformation in her visual appearance over it. The Rainwilders always veiling themselves. The Paragon being blind for most of the series.
Sure.
And him perhaps being able to see closer to the hearts of people than many others could. And Cirilla putting on all of her airs, trying to gain importance and power through the presumption of power itself. The three ships people who are looked down on based on where they lived or what they did, and it just never stopped.
Or even just
the map faces, the tattoos marks, the skin color of the Chalcedeans.
Selden getting scales.
Yeah, physical scars from Malta when she got deformed
Malta
in the accident.
Being very concerned about her beauty.
Which did you buy that? She's worried that Rain's going to think she's ugly.
Little overdone.
He's like a lizard.
Little overdone.
He'd be lucky to. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I think it was a little overdone.
She'd never had a mirror, so it was like this abstract fear.
That is true. I was thinking that. She never really got to see only what other people said about her, like the Chelsea. Yeah. Like, oh, this one, or the Satrap put her down.
And what she could feel. And I imagine that what she felt wasn't necessarily reassuring.
Yeah. That's a good observation, though. I didn't even think that. That plays so much into this story, just the physical appearance of of people in here and what they're wearing, things like that.
Yep.
I brought this up. I don't know if I agree with any of it, but kind of the gender politics in this book, and like the idea of women holding women back. You could say Kefria holding Althea back in her judgments. You could say Cirilla holding Ronica back, or holding Malta back, maybe. But it felt like there was something that, or even like I would even argue Edda not standing
Edda
up
not
for
speaking
Althea.
up. Yep.
Yeah, you know what that reminded
Yep.
me of, or like the opposite. If who here has seen West Side Story? Anyone?
Yes.
No.
Here we go. So there's a scene where the white crew, I don't know if they're the Jets or the Sharks, I can't remember, but they like surround this one girl at the end, and they look like they're about to rape her, and the other girl from the other crew like steps in and saves her and like pushes her out and calls everyone out on it. Like, you guys are no better than honestly rapists. And it was like the exact opposite of what Edda did for uh, Althea. She instead just attacked
Yeah.
her, and it was kind of
But
glaring.
though, like a teenage gang is a little different than a pirate ship.
No, but just the idea of someone who's on the opposite side of you, who is also
Edda was
a
in a
woman,
more lethal situation.
but she would never be in danger by sticking up for Althea. Do you think?
She would have been absolutely.
Isn't she too
Absolutely.
respected on the ship?
I think that, yeah. Well, if Kenneth, I guess
Kenneth's
Kenneth would have
also
found a
very
way.
respected.
Right.
And it's which one of them is more respected. And
I don't know. I
that
think
would
to
have been
Sean's
an
point,
interesting battle to watch unfold, but
right.
in a Hobb universe, I think Kenneth.
But I don't think she was thinking of self-preservation in that moment. She was more hurt that Kenneth chose Althea over her or did this to her. I don't think she was. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like she.
I think she was thinking of self-preservation.
Yeah. So again, but that's holding another woman back, another instance of it, not sticking up for it, just having that communal bond. Even Jack, you know.
There's always this thought in an oppressed group that if you can just police yourself well enough, then other people will not be able to take advantage of you for doing something bad or whatever. This comes up in the gay community a lot regarding sex positivity and open relationships, polyamory, sluttiness, fetishization. How many clothes do you have to wear in a pride parade? There's all of this like self-policing, and if only we do it well enough and we make people too ashamed to be themselves, then maybe we'll get accepted by the group in power. Maybe then the majority will think that we're fine, and we can be respected and have rights.
And
it's so toxic.
Also, I want to point out, like, just because I'm saying women are holding women back in this trilogy, men, I think it should go without saying, are holding women back.
Oh yeah,
clearly,
men are holding women back, and also men are holding men back.
Men back, yeah. Maybe just holding people back, and even the idea, obviously, people not seeing people as people, but as whatever. There's the rapes in this book, slaves. I mean, that's a big theme too. Is that these are just, or even Kenneth seeing people as objects to further him, or whatever.
Yep.
It's kind of interesting how the whole trader area, Bingtown, and that whole kind of bay area is technically more economically and socially advanced than the Six Duchies. The Six Duchies have a more advanced social gender thing going on there. I think everyone's more on even terms up north. Kind of ironic.
You can only create the so-called civilized gender roles when people aren't fighting for like basic hierarchies on Maslow's pyramid.
Yeah, I don't know who I think's better, Bingtown or the Six Duchies. I think they each have their faults.
And they do say that, like, in the earlier eras, when Bingtown was back just with the founding families, women were just as equal as men back then.
Right.
It's really something that's come up more recently and with more Chalcedean influence.
Mm-hmm. All right. I don't think we have any more questions. The only note I have is the Chalceedins were comically villainous. It's like if that's the one that didn't have any like character arc, those guys were just evil.
They just weren't counting on dragons.
Their fatal flaw. They would have had it all if it wasn't for that pesky dragon.
Yeah.
Anything else, Kip, Sean? Anything else you want to touch on? I hope we did it justice.
It was a pleasure to do it with you guys. It was great. And I hope that maybe we can reform this again sometime in the future when I'm ready to continue on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I need a break from
lots
it.
Of Hobb left.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to read the next trilogy with you too, because a lot of people say it. I don't know, Sean, if you like the next trilogy better than this one. I go back and forth. They're like 1A, 1B. That they're just both.
My favorite Hobb book is in the next trilogy, but overall, this one's probably better. It's close, actually. It's close.
I think overall this one's better. I think she works so well with the multi POVs when the story is just all these different characters, and it's not without its flaws, obviously, but I don't know, the emotional ups and downs you went through on all their journeys was it's wicked fun.
Too many serpents, too many epilogues, but other than that, fantastic book.
But again, luckily those serpent chapters were so short. Thank God, because you know what I mean.
Thank God.
Yeah, it was like every time you're like, man, this is a drag, but we're getting it out of the way pretty quick. All right, well that's it for the Liveship Traders episode of the Green Team podcast. Thank you guys for all your questions this time around. I hope everyone had enjoyed listening to it. I hope people were angry and disagreed with us in many points, and said Wintrow's a stand-up guy. But we'll see. We look forward to hearing you in the discussions. I want to thank Horizon Brave for starting this bad boy and giving us the chance, and Craig for letting us talk about an author that they despise, and my fellow panelists.
Hey, Craig gave me a Hobb book.
Wow. Well, he probably hated it so much. He probably paid you to take it.
That'd be Kyle.
Kyle's my favorite, but he broke my heart listening to him on that podcast. Anyway, so thank you, Kip, and thank you, Sean. This was awesome, and hopefully we'll see you guys down the road for more Hobb.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.